Hey everyone. So, welcome to our March edition of the IT Documentation Users Group webinar. I am Sri, the community manager at Eureka Process, and the IT Documentation Users Group is one of the communities that I work very closely with and enjoy nurturing. It comprises people from all over the world, really, from various backgrounds and functions, but everyone has something to do with the art of IT documentation. Um, we have today with us Brook of Eureka Process and Todd Kane from Evolved Management. And the topic for today's webinar is client onboarding, something I'm very sure that most of you, if not all of you, will have had something to do with at some point in time while working in this space. So Brooke is a VP here at Eureka Process. She has had a long career in this space, starting from service delivery manager, I believe. And right now she works with companies trying to identify how basically they can do better at what they do. I let Brooke give a short self-introduction. Brooke?
Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday, hump day, halfway there for all of us. Today, we're going to be talking about new client onboardings. It is something I have a pretty good amount of experience in the MSP space. The last MSP that I worked with, Alan, the gentleman that owns Eureka Process, he and I worked there together. And we developed and tore up and rewrote and redid and revamped a process over and over and over and over again to get to the part where we are at today, where we share it with a lot of our clients. And a lot of that of a new client onboarding is documentation. So that's what we hope that we're going to be able to help everybody with today.
Thank you, Brooke. Todd comes from more than a decade working specifically on management frameworks with companies, and he's worked with some very well-known names in Canada. Todd, would you like to tell us a little bit more about what you do, story of Evolved Management?
Sure. So yeah, Evolved Management Consulting basically act as a coach or consultant with MSPs to help them increase profit and decrease stress. The management framework is a big piece of that, and just helping develop leaders, either the owner of the organizations or the first line leaders, as they're developing those leaders internally in the organization, is a big focus for me. But it's really kind of everything under the sun inside the MSP. My experience is pretty deep, running a organization that was growing by 30 to 40 people a week for a period. You sure learn a lot about how to grow companies and grow leadership in those companies. My last MSP experience before going on and starting my own consulting practice was working with Fully Managed. I was the VP of operations there. And for those not aware, Fully Managed is the MSP that created IT Glue. So I jokingly refer to myself as the original alpha tester.
I mean, hearing you talk about 30, 40 people coming in every week, I'm thinking this should have been new employee onboarding now. I mean, that's a serious number we're talking about there. But thank you, Todd, and it's great to have you on here with us today. Just to set expectations to everyone watching in, we're going to be doing this webinar for 30 minutes, so we have about 25 minutes until wrap up. And please feel free to ask questions in the comments box of wherever you're watching this from, be it YouTube, be it LinkedIn, or IT.group. And with that, Brooke, I'll let you kick this off, and I'll bring up the presentation right now.
Alrighty, so today Todd and I are going to go over some how-tos, some best practices when we are onboarding a new client, and we will jump right into that. So let's get this party started. So the onboarding in general, it kind of has four parts and pieces to it. There's the pre-launch, all the stuff that we need to figure out when we just get notified, hey, the owner got us a new client. This is what's going to happen. We're bringing on somebody new. So there's that big piece of it. The second big chunk is some stuff that we have to do the night before go day is what I call it, go live day. Then we have the launch day. That's the day where this particular client is now live with us as an MSP. We're going to be providing support for them, all that kind of stuff. And then we have the post-launch. That's sort of the end part. That's the wrap up where we're going through everything that we've done and making sure that we've got everything in there. So there are documentation pieces in every single one of these chunks. A new client onboarding is documentation heavy. I tell people all the time, it's about 90% documentation and about 10% other stuff. It's about 10% of, giving them showing them the love and, explaining how they're going to get in contact with us for support, and, doing some other stuff. But 90% of it is documenting the, what out of this company into whatever documentation platform you're using. Todd?
Yeah, definitely. I think also defining what that project looks like. Like a lot of people, I think, will start onboarding and just ad hoc it. So having a defined project plan is pretty critical. And I think there's also sort of a spectrum of how involved that onboarding process can be. And, for a lot of people, it's just send a tech over to there and have them walk around, take some pictures, collect documentation, and install the RMM agent. All the way up to, some organizations actually embed 2 staff for 6 weeks inside an organization in order to rip and replace the entire environment. So onboarding can take a lot of forms, and I think it's important as a starting point to define what your onboarding process and your onboarding projects look like. And to some degree, they can scale depending on the size of the organization that you're onboarding. The onboarding for a 20-person professional service office, like a lawyer or an accountant firm or something like that, is going to be very, very different from a 150-person onboarding for a large manufacturing organization, for example.
All right, Shri, let's talk about the pre-launch. So the beginning part, again, and what Todd was saying is the kicker for this is whatever you're doing now, you need to write it down if it's not written down. So whatever process you've got, whether it's working great or not working great, we have to document it. We need to know, what are we doing now? How is it working? What are the steps? Who's responsible for what? So that's sort of the first piece in this, because you're not going to be able to make anything better if you don't know what you're currently doing now on a piece of paper of some sort. So we want to make sure that we get that documented. The first chunk of a new client onboarding, the pre-launch, it's some introduction letters. We want to make sure that out of the gate, as soon as the person has been told, hey, you're coming on board with client, XYZ is coming on board with us. We're, the new MSP. We want to start sending over some information to them out of the gate. There's nothing worse than not having communication. That is a deal breaker, and just pretty much across the board. I don't care what part of an MSP that you work in, not communicating with your client is the quickest way to have people be upset with you. So you want to communicate out of the gate. You want to communicate effectively and efficiently. So we're going to have some intro letters. Intro letters as far as, hey, this is your account manager. Hey, we need some passwords. Hey, we need some documentation from you. Can you provide us this information? They can be form letters. They can be online forms that we're going to have them fill out, but we want to get those things sent over in a fairly short order, because that's what's going to help us document in our system so that you can see the holes. If we don't get the information from the client, we don't know that we're missing in order to be able to support them. Another one of the things that we recommend is something called a Pro PC. It can be anything sort of like that. It's something that we're going to get connected to their network that's going to start pulling data for us. Sometimes in the beginning, you're not going to have access to everything in a transition period. If they have an MSP now and they're going to transition to us, the MSP that's currently there now, until they're done, they're not going to let you put your agents on there. They're not going to give you access to the back end of the firewall and everything else to get in there. So you might need to come up with an alternative solution in order to be able to get some data gathering going on. The other piece is data collection itself. What Todd was mentioning, physical data collection. I've never done it where I've embedded somebody for a long period of time, but sending a tech on site is something I do every single time. Somebody goes on site, it's documented in our system, what pictures I want, how I want you to take the pictures, and then when you get back, where do I want you to put the pictures and how do I want you to name them? So it's very clear when somebody goes on site for the new client onboarding to go gather that information for us. We have it documented in our system so that A, this is what I need, but B, the tech that's going on site, it's very clear to that person the information that they need to get from me and how they need to get it. Because just telling the tech, hey, go on site and take me some pictures of the network closet, that can mean 10 different things to 10 different techs. I want a picture of the serial number. I need a far out picture so I can see how the rack is laid out. How's everything connected in there? Maybe I want to see the patch panel. Is there another network closet? How are those two things connected? Because at the end of the day, we're going to have to make some network diagrams. So all of this information gathering is super important. Also, don't take out of the account when you're doing data collection, getting information from actual people themselves. I know techs, they want to hang out in the network closet all day long and just not really do anything, but you really need to talk to the people that are there, because sometimes they can be a wealth of information for issues. If you know everybody in the accounting department that sits on this side of the building, they have really cruddy Wi-Fi and they have problems all the time and it's slow and it takes a, you know what, on Friday afternoons, you're not going to find that information in your network closet. So you need to, that some of that data collection needs to come from people. So you want to talk to people. Again, make sure you have it documented so that I tell the tech, hey, when you're walking around, try to walk throughout the building, talk to different people in different areas, ask them if everything is, you know, is it okay? Are you guys having any problems? Again, just write everything down and we will get it uploaded to our platform when you get back. Todd?
Yeah, you mentioned using forms for collection, which I think is really important. But recognizing, like, giving the client homework initially, they may or may not give you quality information or actually do the work. So mileage may vary on information collection processes. So just be careful of that.
Absolutely.
Also, using automation for the communication up front is really useful. So if you're using either a CRM or in ConnectWise Manage, for example, you can use tracks to automate some of those communications with the relevant stakeholders, right? So sometimes you're going to be communicating certain things with a business decision maker, but maybe they have an influencer or somebody else that you're communicating with inside the organization. Maybe there's someone different for billing, and aligning those things around who's responsible for what and how those communications align for them. And then that some of that training being sent out beforehand to some of the users as well, maybe a bit before sort of at this stage, but that can be useful. The other thing you mentioned I wanted to write down is a really great tip of just observing how people are working in that environment when you're on site, and just sort of noticing, like, if people are having problems, just sort of sitting in that client environment and observing what's going on around you, and if possible, actually interviewing people on, you know, what are the things that you really struggle with? What are the pain points around using technology around here? And quite often there's going to be some low-hanging fruit that you could just smash while you're there. So that can be really, really helpful just to get some quick wins and win the trust of some of the staff that are working there. Like, they're sitting around saying, like, this has never worked. It's been a pain in my butt for 2
Yep.
months. And then you're there, you make a quick fix for them. And like, oh, this is awesome. You guys are great. Our new IT company is amazing. So look for those low-hanging fruit.
We did that as well when I was at the MSP here in Savannah. Alan gave me a lot of leeway. Sometimes he probably wished that he did not. But we were onboarding a company that specialized in waste management. So I got permission and I showed up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I got on a trash truck. And I rode with one of the trash trucks for an entire day. They used a particular piece of software and some tablets, and the drivers were just complaining that this software was just, I mean, to make a pun, it was trash. It was awful. Nobody liked it. It didn't work. It was supposed to help with, you know, their route planning and helping them with the GPS and everything. And they just seriously complained about it. So I was like, you know what, let me go ride with one of these guys. So it was rough. It was raining. It's the worst smell. I had to throw away clothes after that. But what we realized is the particular software that they had on the tablets and what they had on a Prem server at that time, it was woefully outdated. They had not kept up with the updates for the software on the tablets or the software on the server. So I came back and talked to one of the techs in-house, and I was like, hey, this is going on. And they took a look at it, and we literally had it fixed in 2 days. And everybody was super stoked about what we had done. But if we had not taken the time to talk to literally the guys that drive the trash trucks, because when you onboard, you hang out in the office and you want to hang out with the CEO, but the people that are doing the work that I call keep the lights on, you know, those were the people that were able to give me a lot of information about something that wasn't working. So that's a good example of where we put what Todd said into practice and it worked. And the client was super duper happy with us. Okie doke. Night before. This is night before go live day, the launch day. You want to meet with your staff internally. This is where you're going to tell them what you know about this client, any sort of funky one-off things that they have that's a different setup. You want to go over whatever you have in your documentation platform. Hey, you know, this is the client, this is what's going, we're showing up there tomorrow, this is the kind of business they're in, any sort of, you know, this is our point of contact, how many users, just the general stuff, because your support staff is going to be taking calls and everything potentially from these people tomorrow. So we want them to feel comfortable that we have all the information they need. So when they take that call, they can hop on a server, remote into a workstation, and support them the same as a client that we've had for 2 or 3 years. Automation, this is where we're going to use our RMM tool. The agents are probably already there at that point, but we might want to push down any antivirus at that point. In general, I don't do that until the day before because some antivirus does not play well with others. So when you're going to rip and replace and put something else on, sometimes it can cause some funky things to happen. So that's why I wait until the night before. That way, A, my staff is ready to support them the next morning. And then B, I normally have somebody on site. So if something just really, went all the way sideways, I've got somebody right there that can walk over to that desk and fix that problem if it's somebody that's in office. But again, I try not to do it until the night before. And then also the punch list. This is kind of going back to what Todd was saying. If there's anything that we don't have documentation-wise, information-wise that came from the client, when I do that kickoff meeting, whether it's in a Zoom or whether it's in person, that's an opportunity for me as the project manager or the account manager, VCIO, whoever is running your client onboarding, to go through that list and kind of get any of those boxes checked or get any of the blanks that we need to get filled in during that time. Okie doke, launch day. This was actually my favorite thing of the new client launch because it is an opportunity to roll out the red carpet. When we were here in Savannah, all of our clients were local, so we did an on-site new client launch. It was a really big deal for us. We made a big production out of it. We had catered breakfast come in. We would bring them mouse pads, swag from the company. People love free stuff. Mouse pads had all the contact information on it. So it's twofold. Hey, I'm giving you something cool for your desk, but at the same time, it has all the different ways that you can contact me for support. It's also an opportunity to go around and talk to everybody there. Again, all of the people that work at the company, not just the guy that's writing the checks or the person that's approving the purchases, everybody that's working all across the building, no matter what job they may have. Point of contact interview. That's again where we're sitting down with a particular person, talking about any issues that they have. A lot of times when somebody is switching MSPs, they have this thing I call it, they've been saving things. They got tired of talking to the MSP. They weren't listening to them, whatever. They kind of got grumpy. The relationship soured. So they sit on a lot of issues. So this is where I kind of want to document all of those things, all of those issues they've been sitting on so that we can try to work through that. Also, it's a time for me to set expectations. So if they're like, hey, the server's really slow. It's been slow for 6 months. I'll get to that question in a minute. This is something I'm going to say, hey, we're going to take a look at that. But, if your server's been slow for 6 months, 99% of the time, I'm not fixing this tomorrow. I will get a ticket going. We'll look at the root cause. We'll see what's going on with it. But I want to set expectations that some of these longer term issues that have been going on for a very long time, we're going to need to kind of dig in on that, roll up our sleeves a little bit. Server room, again, this is the network closet. Make sure that if we didn't get any pictures on the initial visit, again, those sort of the check boxes, the data collection, any blanks that need to be filled in, all that kind of stuff. Also printers. It's the bane of our existence as an IT person. We hate printers more than anything in this world, but we still need to document them anyway. Especially what I call the big boy printers. So if they have those printers there that are managed by a third party, making sure that we get that stuff documented so that somebody doesn't go down a rabbit hole troubleshooting something when we have a printer vendor that we just need to call and have them come on site and take care of whatever the issue is. I thought I saw a question about who should run the onboarding. There's a lot of different avenues you can take on that. A lot of it might depend on the size of your MSP, how many employees you have working there. That might dictate who's going to run it. If you have a project manager, you can have the project manager run it. I've seen MSPs where they were, the engineers, they were a little bit larger in size. They were broken down to pods or teams. So sometimes the team lead might be the person that's running the onboarding because his team, her team might be supporting them. I have account managers running them at other places because those are the people that are going to meet with them quarterly and make those suggestions. So sometimes I've seen that work as well. Todd, what have you seen in your experience as far as who's running onboardings?
Yeah, I think you covered it. Like if you're big enough to have an onboarding team, like at least one person dedicated, all they're doing is onboarding, but you got to have a pretty good sales funnel to be able to manage that. Otherwise, you're breaking it down by responsibility. There should be someone kind of, my sort of position on projects in general is someone should always be managing the project that isn't actually doing the work. So that segregation of responsible versus accountable is pretty critical there. Just a couple of other quick points as well I wanted to bring up. You mentioned kind of the installing the antivirus, and a quick point on this is like that's a major point of security risk when you're removing an antivirus and enabling an antivirus. Just make sure that you're doing that fairly quickly, and also if there is any resident resident malware, that is usually a strong trigger for someone to basically release an attack if they have a foothold already. So just being very security conscious, and also before you make any changes in the environment, first thing you verify is that the backups work. Right. So don't
No,
change
right?
anything until you've double checked. Not that, yes, we have backups. Like, no, they actually have backups that have run and worked and we can recover from them. So make sure that that's covered off first. And then also, as a part of the user training, I think a really important piece for MSPs in particular is make sure that you're coaching the staff or in your new clients to not phone you for everything. Phone for emergencies, but otherwise send an email or use some other like chat, or if you have like a little desktop widget to create a ticket, train them on using those systems, because phone calls are expensive. They're synchronous. You have to be there and actually talk to someone live. Whereas if you can build enough trust with that user that if they send an email, it gets looked after. Usually people rely on the phone because the service desk doesn't respond to them as quickly. And if they wait 2 days, then they're not really confident that something's being looked after. So they'll naturally just phone so that they get a hold of someone and know that something is being done. So training them to use different modes of interaction with your team, I think, is a really important point to reduce your call volume.
Absolutely. Good point. All right, post-launch. This is after we've gone and we've done the dog and pony show, or showed them all the love. They're super stoked to be our new client. We're supporting them. Everything is great. So this is where the documentation is really going to kick into high gear. We've done a ton of stuff up until now, but the post-launch is all about documentation now. It is about going through to make sure we have every single thing answered, have all the blanks been filled in, the documentation platform. Are there any holes that we have? Control changes, any changes that we've made. We want to make sure that we have documented the out of that, like what Todd's talking about. We're going to rip and replace the AV. What did they have? We took it off. What did we put on? Anything that we noticed that's strange or odd. Standardization. This is, I will say, this is probably, there's two sides of the coin for this. Some people do it and some people don't. When you start renaming stuff, do you want everybody to get under the naming standard as far as machines go, laptops, workstations, servers, etc., firewall switches? A lot of us, we have a naming standard that we want to use. Are you going to, rename everything that's out there? Or are you going to leave it as is? And then when you start putting new equipment in, that's going to follow your naming standard. So you want to have that discussion beforehand. Again, there's two sides of the coin on that. Some people are all for it. Some people are not. It just kind of depends on what side of the fence you're on. So you're going to want to talk about standardization. As far as that, it also can be standardization as far as your stack goes. A lot of people are like what Todd was talking about, the people that are going to be camped out for 6 weeks, they're going to do the rip and replace. Some people have a very firm stack, and when a new client comes on board, they're taking out everything that person has and putting in their entire stack. They could give a flip. Some people are more of, if you have business grade equipment, it's covered under warranty, it has all the correct licensing, we'll let you keep it until it runs out, and then we're going to put you under our stack. So making sure whichever case you have, that again, we get them under our standards, whether it's naming, whether it's hardware, whether it's whatever. And then also the check-ins. This is really important because we did this really cool dog and pony show. We showed them all the love, but if they never hear from us again, except when they're putting in a ticket, then, you're going to be right back in the boat from the MSP that just got done before you did. So you want to make sure you have regular check-ins with your clients. Whether it's a VCIO or an account manager or a team lead or something, those need to be regular, and they need to have it happen always, every single time. You can't skip them, because you want the point of contact in the company to get used to that and know that, hey, I'm checking in on you every single month or every 3 months or whatever the case is that you're going to set up, and that they're aware that that's happening, and then what's going to happen during those check-ins.
Brooke, just a point on standardization really quickly. It's again, kind of important for you to understand what your standardization approach is, right? So some organizations will not onboard you until the projects are complete around standardization. So they're done as a project beforehand, before the MSA starts. Some will have the onboarding process actually align the standardization. That's a lot more work, and other organizations, a good sort of half measure on this this is you onboard and then you tell them these things need to be done before we onboard you because they're really critical. And then here's a list of projects that need to get done kind of in the next 3 months to align to our standard. So making sure like you understand how that standardization lays out for that client is really critical. Is it something we do before? Is it something we do as a part of onboarding? Or is it a project cycle that we use after the fact to align that client on a 3-month or 6-month basis, whatever that case is?
Absolutely. And then one of the things that a lot of people forget about is after it's all over, you need to have a postmortem or a wrap-up meeting. This is where you're going to have everybody that was involved in the onboarding, from the tech went on site that took the pictures to maybe somebody that was helping with documentation, maybe your finance person that was getting the agreement uploaded and getting them set up in whatever payment portal we have, all that kind of stuff. We want to have everybody in the room because we want to talk about what went great, what did we absolutely kill and knock out of the park, what didn't go super hot that we need to improve on next time. And then any ideas where somebody that was in part of this process and said, hey, if we could do this next time, it would save us a ton of time, or it would be better for the client if we could do it this way instead of the way that we're currently doing it. So you want to make sure that you're constantly getting feedback, because theoretically this process should change pretty frequently. Everybody should come to the table with a new idea or a better way to do something, because you should be involving multiple people each time. You want to give people, I call it sort of a turn at the table. I want the same tech to kind of go and get the stuff documented, but after he's got it down and it's documented and it says how we're supposed to do it, I should be able to give somebody else a chance to go have that opportunity to go on site and document everything. And maybe that person sees something different with a fresh set of eyes. So you want to make sure you're getting feedback from your entire team every time and seeing how you can improve it. The one that Alan and I have, it started with literally one piece of paper and it grew into like 19 pages. It's a massive project now that we have in our template, in our PSA system that we use, with multiple faces and tickets. And every single time we do one, there's something that we change or we tweak or we alter, or we've got a new document in the documentation platform and I need to update that because we're doing something a little bit different now. So it's a constantly evolving process. And I really think that's how you're going to improve your processes and get better, is if you don't kind of sit back, you always have to be thinking ahead. How can I do it differently next time? How can I make it better the next time around? Brand it. This is a cool way to kind of name your, we call it a new client launch mission. That was the name that I had, the Eureka process, client welcome initiative. Brand it, give it a name. It can be corny, it can be quirky, it can be just something super simple. But that's the name of your process that you're going to use. This is the name of your onboarding. This is the name of whatever. Everybody's used to it. Again, ours here in Savannah, it got quite the following. People were looking forward to it, and they were like, hey, we heard that we're getting the new client launch mission. Are we going to get all the same stuff that we heard Company X got? And I was like, absolutely. You're going to get all the cool stuff. So brand it, own it. It should be something that's fun. Yes, it's a lot of work, but at the end of the day, you're really going to help another company come on board with you, see all of the cool things that you can do for them, what you can help them with. So you should take it as an opportunity to really just kind of, welcome these people with open arms. All right. Onboarding is for everyone. Again, this goes back to kind of giving everybody a shot at it. If we document this correctly and we do everything well, then a lot of different people should get an opportunity to be able to help with an onboarding. Again, it's fun. It's different. You get somebody, to get out from behind the desk. You're not just resetting passwords all day long. Give everybody kind of a shot to do something a little bit different. Make it fun. Again, go on site, roll out the red carpet. It should be an enjoyable experience for everybody. Be available. This is for both the client and for your internal staff. Be available to answer questions. Be available for feedback. Everybody's not going to understand everything. If the SOPs don't make sense, opportunity to go fix them. Let people give you feedback. Make yourself available to improve things and make it better. And then maintaining the bar. Again, that's having a very consistent client experience when you do one of these, which is why documentation is critical. I document it. This is the process that I use. If I get hit by a FedEx truck, is what I always say, and Todd's doing my onboarding next week, he should be able to do the onboarding exactly the same way that I do. Should I have everything documented for him, and he should take off and run with it, and it should be the exact same experience for the next client that I just did. We are really close on time. Shree, did we come in under time or are we close?
We are fine, as long as you guys are fine.
Me and Todd were hustling.
We've got quite a few questions online, actually, so I'm going to throw up some of them.
Great.
We have a comment from Peter, who was talking about a pain point from last onboarding.
Yep, this is one of the things, Todd, you can mention again, what you were talking about setting those expectations.
Yeah, just try to dissuade people from using the phone unless it's an emergency. It's just it's so much easier to queue things up through email and through chat. I particularly like chat because realistically, a tech can serve two, maybe three people at the same time because people aren't as urgent. Like if someone asked you a question on the phone and there was a 10 or 15-second delay, you'd be like, "What? Hello." But in a chat session, like no one's really bothered by that. And some of it's a bit of a generational divide as well, that you may see that. But as much as you can, as I said, if people trust that if I send an email for a support request and it gets looked after and I get a timely response, then I'm fine doing that. But if you find that people are phoning, or especially if you have a new client and the person that goes on site gets mobbed by people and people are holding those tickets, then that's an indication that they don't trust the service desk. So you got to review why that is and fix it, right?
I say yes. I am not a huge fan of running multiple projects. I like to have all my projects separate, and onboarding should be its own project. And then the onboarding is done, and then you move on to the next. So deploying some computers, to me, that should be a separate project. Not saying you can't run them in parallel, but they are completely separate projects with separate expectations. Again, onboarding is extremely documentation heavy. So I am not a fan. Like, I will show up some places, they've got a server, an O365, and a firewall all in one thing. Not a fan of that. I like to keep things separate. Sometimes people do a security suite deployment that's sort of an add-on level of security. Get your onboarding first and then do the other things separately. Maybe, I don't know, Todd was talking about those people that get embedded for 6 weeks. So maybe those projects are a little bit different in nature. I think that would depend on your makeup. I haven't ever seen one of those. So Todd might need to speak on that one.
It's an extreme circumstance. It's not typical for most, right? It's a
Yeah.
couple of organizations that I know that are fairly large. They have a very prescriptive stack where they strip the entire infrastructure down to the ground and rebuild it from AD
Okay.
up. So it's a very, very lengthy
Right.
process, but it's bulletproof. The whole environment is standardized,
Okay.
and it reduces the complexity for support. But that's a very high tier offering, right? So it's not going to be typical for most organizations. But having someone spend a week there, or at least a day or two, I think is fairly common, right?
Okay.
I'm
What do we got
jumping back
next?
in because Veronica, my colleague, mentioned that some people might be listening in on audio, so better read out the questions. So
Okay.
we have Eric Sheldon here who asked, do you leave the initial scanning computer on site forever? Was just thinking about this and buying some NUCs for this exact thing.
Um, there's kind of, I mean, I guess there's two thoughts. Is proximity is one thing, and the proximity of the clients and your staff. Do you have a heavy staff that's in office, or do you have people scattered across the country? When we were at the MSP here in Savannah, we did leave it there. We left it there on purpose because we had it connected directly to the firewall, so that way we could get in on the back end anytime. It was a way for us to get into the network if everything else just kind of went south really badly. They're fairly inexpensive now to buy those little nooks or those little, probe machines or whatever. So they're really, really inexpensive. And again, I think there's, you got to think about it from a cost perspective from your end. Also from the client, like I said, it gives you access on the back end with, if something else is down and you can't get into it. So there's a lot of different ways to slice and dice it. Then too, are your clients scattered about, or your users scattered about? If somebody goes down in Dallas, Texas, and you don't have any boots on the ground, and you could possibly get in with the Nook on the back end versus having to call a Field Nation tech. I mean, kind of got to weigh that one out.
Eric's busy. He also asks, what do you do for clients that have Windows Home mixed throughout and don't have a real need for
Home is a
working?
we don't start on that. That's a
Yep.
non-starter right there. Everybody has Windows operating system that are professional business licenses. We don't do anything with Windows. If somebody has Windows Home, that will literally get changed when we start pulling data with our automation platforms that we use. That's going to come back and tell us out of the gate, and we're going to say these 3 users, we got to upgrade their OS like yesterday.
Yeah, this goes back to what I said, where like you don't start the MSA until some of these projects are completed, and
Yeah.
that would be a good example of one. Is like, no, this has to be a professional environment before you can hire a professional to manage it. If you want to keep this, then you can talk to somebody else for time and material support. But
Yeah.
in order for us to support you, we're gonna replace these operating systems and get an AD structure in place because it'll make your life 10 times easier. It'll make my life 10 times easier, and it's just
I
gonna
mean,
be better for the
AD,
experience
I
for
mean,
everybody.
things are different now. AD doesn't have to be on a prem server. You can have it in a cloud environment,
Yep.
but you need AD to have security and authentication. So
Yep.
even
You
if
can't
they
have a
don't have
work
a
group
physical
environment
service,
essentially.
I mean, we still need to have authentication. Still, people still need to log in. They still need to have a complex password. I said, even if it's in a cloud-based environment, they still need to have some sort of an Active Directory, even if it's in a work group scenario.
We'll take one last question from Pete. If new client runs horrible stack and your onboarding projects include rip and replace, it's going to be difficult to manage their expectations when you can't vote junk. How do you deal with this?
If it's a horrible stack, that's a conversation we're having like from the jump. That's before we even onboard. If we show up and they've got some Netgear switch from Walmart and whatever, and their server is a Windows 7 desktop that they converted because some guy's nephew was able to set it up with AD or I mean those are conversations we're having from the beginning. That's not during the onboarding process. That's far ahead of that, and we set those expectations that your stack it's horrible. We're going to be able to fix it. It's going to cost money, and this is what's going to have to happen. But we do not recommend that you onboard somebody with a stack that's that bad. Again, that's a conversation you're having at the very beginning. These things are going to need to get changed because we can't support that type of equipment.
I think we can start wrapping up. And thank you, both of you, for the breakneck pace. I think I might have set the bar too high by asking for 30 minutes, but I also feel that, it's the middle of the day. It's during we run the IT Tech webinars for everyone's watching on the last Wednesday of every month. So we know that we're asking you to take out time in the middle of your workday, in the middle of the week, which is probably not the best time. But keep in mind, you can also listen in through audio. These webinars are also recorded. You can access them through the IT Tech group at any point in time. And if you have any follow-up questions, I mean, the group is also a great place to ask questions. We have more than 4,000 people from with various levels of experience. The Eureka process team is there. So feel free to ask questions, and we can always try and address them in the best way we can. Todd, thank you so much for joining in. I think it was great having your experience combined with Brook's. I think a lot of people got good value out of this. And so the next IT Tech webinar will be on the 27th of April, which is the last Wednesday in April. And it will be about the process. So the whole art of the process itself. And it
Very
will be
meta.
led by our very own Alan Edwards. So keep a lookout for that. We'll have the event listing going on IT Doug and all our social media platforms by mid-April. And you'll also receive an email invite if you're on our mailing list. So if you join the IT Doug group, you'll be on our mailing list. I would also take this opportunity to plug our new or you have Evolve Management's website right here. That's Todd's website. Please look him up. Todd is based in Canada. I know he has clients all over the place.
He's also on IT Doug as well, and everybody there on that particular group on Facebook is really good about adding the right people. So when I say, I mean like the at symbol. So I mean, if I see somebody ask a question and I know Todd's the right guy, I'll just at Todd and say, hey Todd, can you field this dude's question or whatever. So that whole group, that community is really good about making sure that we get you in contact with the right person to help you answer the question.
Exactly. And because my team obviously felt that I don't have enough on my plate, they decided to start a subreddit. So we have a subreddit now.
Stoked about this.
And then they decided that one subreddit wasn't enough. So we have got a subreddit for hiring now. So Brooke's mostly busy there, and she's been going viral and stuff. So it's great. But yeah, we've been keeping busy. So do check us out on Reddit at Eureka Process, and then also MSP Hire, right, Brooke? That's
that's one of the ones on Reddit. There's a lot of positions and stuff that are posted on there. And then the Eureka process one we're going to try. We had some questions on our last one about IT Doug. A lot of people, they're not on Facebook, don't want to be on Facebook. So we were trying to kind of think out of the box. Where else can we put the documentation information? So again, we're trying to maybe do Reddit. Shri, I kind of maybe said a Discord thing, and then his eye started twitching at that point. So Maybe we'll be able to get the Discord thing going. We're working on the Reddit part now, but again, it was just we had some comments from people that said, is there anywhere else we can get this information? So we're trying to kind of get that fleshed out.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone who joined in. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your questions, and see you next time around. Thanks, Todd.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brook. Bye.
Bye.